35.
But the involvement in the expedition of men sent from 6 colonies against a common enemy was the first stirring of a sense of nationhood for this future great country. A year later, almost 2,000 troops under British General Braddock sallied forth again into the wilderness, resolved to rout the French once and for all. Officers Stephen and Washington swallowed their pride at the preferential treatment to British officers because they expected it to be a great victory.
About 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the 1st Division of our forces was attacked. The private men of the 2 regiments were entirely at a loss in the woods. The savages and Canadians kept on their bellies in the bushes and behind the trees, and took particular aim at our officers, most of whom are killed or wounded. The British troops were thunderstruck to feel the effect of a heavy fire, and seeing no enemy, they threw away their fire in a most indiscreet manner. They kept in a mere huddle, in spite of the most ardent endeavours of many brave officers. Shame unto the infamous dogs! Their numbers only served to increase the number of killed. They were infatuated to such a pitch that they would obey no orders, killed one another and deserted their colours. And after about 3.5 hours, shame that it should ever be heard of, run from a small number of French and savages, leaving them an easy prey of the most valuable train, a stock of ammunition, provisions and baggage. In short, the enemy attained an easy and complete victory. The few independents and Virginians that were engaged behaved better and suffered much. There were but few of them engaged, as General Braddock had unhappily placed his confidence and whole dependence on the regiments. But His Excellency found to his woeful experience what had been frequently told him, that formal attacks and platoon firing never would answer against the savages and Canadians. It ought to be laid down as a maxim to attack them first, to fight them in their own way and go against them light and naked, as they come against us, creeping near and hunting us, as they would do a herd of buffalo or deer. Whereas you might as well send a cow in pursuit of a hare, as an English soldier loaded in their way with a coat, jacket, etc., after Canadians in their shirts, who can shoot and run well, or naked Indians accustomed to the woods. I had only 100 men, and was dogged day and night by the Indians, but by vigilance, which is the only thing can secure one against such an enemy, joined the general 4 days before the engagement without the loss of a man or bullock. We beat them out of their ambushes, and always had the first fire on them. I always declared openly, and at the time was not the better off for it, that they would be attacked before they arrived at the fort. My reasons were that the French must lose the use of their Indians if they did not. 12 Virginia officers were engaged, 6 of whom were killed. I have 2 bullet holes in my body at this instant.
July 9th was a disaster in which British troops kept firing into colonial volunteers and attacking French beyond, killing, according to a later study of retrieved bullet types, 2 of their own for every one of the Frenchmen killed. Braddock himself fell, one account saying by the gun of an angry Virginia rifleman. Washington had 4 bullet holes in his coat. Of every 5 men fighting, 3 were killed or wounded. Stephen or Washington would never forget that day. Stephen remained on the frontier with some 300 men at Fort Cumberland, helpless against Shawnees who killed settlers who were settling on their traditional hunting lands. Stephen also weathered criticism from remote observers such as Washington and Dinwiddie for not carrying out their often delayed orders.
To George Washington Winchester, Sir, Matters are in the most deplorable situation at Fort Cumberland. Our communication with inhabitants is cut off. By the best judges of Indian affairs, it's thought there are at least 150 Indians about us. They divided into small parties, having cut off the settlements of Patterson Creek, Potomac, above Creosops. They go about and commit their outrages at all hours of the day, and nothing is to be seen or heard of but desolation and murders heightened with all barbarous circumstances and unheard instances of cruelty. They spare the lives of the young women and carry them away to gratify their brutal passions of lawless savages. The smoke of the burning plantations darken the day and hide the neighboring mountains from our sight. Fraser has lost 2 of his family and moved to the fort to do harm.
Finally, after 2 years, Stephen and his men enjoyed reassignment to Charleston, South Carolina, to fight a war with the Creeks that never materialized. Instead, as one wrote, "Mighty conqueror love has made havoc in the core," referring to the city's social life.
G. Washington. I am but a little acquainted with the ladies, but if you will allow me to be a judge, the fair in this place must give way in beauty, easy behavior, and other female accomplishments to the daughters of the more northern climes. We are all peace and quiet on this quarter. But notwithstanding, some of your officers have not escaped being wounded. I only appeal to Captain Mercer's letter. Can't you plainly discover it? I have the pleasure to inform you that the 2 companies of your regiment under my command are well. They are well disciplined and have this advantage of all other troops in America, that they know the parade as well as Prussians, and the fighting in a close country as well as Tartars.